Welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar, Hoke here. Tom Jacobs. An interesting week last week on the DP World Tour. It's a little tough to face the music right away after. Callum Shinkwin was excellent. He deserved that win. We had a long talk about that outright number last week. Does it take it on the chin a little bit to you? How do you feel?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, look, Jason was on the podcast on Lost Words, sort of saying that you kind of just have to take the number and live with it. And I just said no, like, I'm just not going to do that with Callum Shinkwin. I can probably stand by that decision. Like, he played the best golf he's ever played in his career. To do that, he still made a few mistakes, and I think just the fact that the people around him weren't keeping up with him probably helped. I think if the kind of leaders or the contenders kind of put a bit more pressure on him, then maybe he may have faltered a little bit. That's not to take anything away. Like, I think he was brilliant. I have no problems not going to him at 20-1. Like, I don't think he's going to be shorter than 20-1 on his next start. I think that comes into play. So had he been 20-1 this week, I'd have been all over him, because 20-1 this week seems to be like, we'll talk about that in a minute. But there's some ridiculous numbers down there, and it's tough. And I mean, it's 3 seconds in a row now, isn't it? Luckily, it wasn't by one shot this time. So we had Waring losing by one shot, Pepperell losing by one shot, and then Seam losing by a few. So it wasn't too bad this time. But I mean, we're on the right track, Sky. I think we're doing the right things. Waring was right up there for you as well. Just don't seem to be able to get that kind of first place.
Yeah, and I guess a consistency of being around the leaderboard. And that's kind of what we have done the last couple of years. I don't think it's always an easy way to say, and even in the game of golf, if you win, just because you won an event doesn't mean, you are the best golfer, perhaps. If you have a consistent ability to show, some success around being in the mix, whether or not that Sunday goes your way, it's really out of your control. But
are we saying we're the Tony
strong?
Are we the Tony Finau of golf betting?
I mean, if we can get back-to-back wins here, then yeah, I'm in.
I think that's what's happening. I think, we're consistently out there. We're kind of top 20, 30 in the world, hopefully higher than that in golf podcast terms. I think we just need to convert them into victories, right? I think that the consistency number, like, all joking aside, like, getting the right people inside the top 5 or top 10 consistently every week is a huge skill. And that's not to make excuses for the fact that we haven't got the winners over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I think getting someone right over 72 holes, especially when it comes down to 1 or 2 shots, is incredibly difficult. So I think all power to the people that are going 2, 3, 4, results in a row. We'll just keep plodding on. I think they'll come, and like Tony Finau has, we'll get back-to-back wins.
100%. Yeah, the breakthroughs happen, and I come into this week a little more inspired than usual, and it's not from the DP World Tour. It's really from what we saw on the PGA Tour yesterday. That Tom Kim winning like he did, and just the evolution of the talent that he has shown since he was 15 years old, and just getting to see, like, these are the guys, and Tom Kim is as good of a talent as you're ever going to see coming up. That's not to say every time I pick somebody at 1,000-1, they are Tom Kim, but the type of trajectory and being early and seeing it validated and going through and having it all happen on fast forward like it did for Tom Kim over the last 6 weeks, like, that is why I bet golf, man. That is why I am intrigued on it. That is why I think the research and the time spending is so cool and so neat when it feels like you did something when you see that success, almost like that. So that was a really cool Sunday for me, watching him do what he did.
I agree with that, and I think it's one of those ones where, like, again, you stuck with him, well done, and a lot of people were on him, so that was good. He was another one, bit like Shinkwin, like, everything was in your face, like, and you just have to, take the number or not. And I kind of tried to make excuses that his 5 or 6 events in a row is going to be too much, and it wasn't. I mean, when he made a quad on the first hole of the week, maybe you think you've made the right decision, but he was awesome, and it was great to see. I mean, as someone that had Taylor Moore in the kind of running, I kind of thought, this is a tough watch, like, him just consistently birdie, and then eventually you just start to enjoy it, and he was great.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, fun week overall, and we dip into a week of opportunity I think is the best way you classify a field, like we have here this coming week. So, we are going to be in Northern Ireland this week for the ISPS Honda World Invitational, going back to Galgorm Castle. Last time we saw this, somebody did change kind of their golf trajectory at the time. It hasn't paid off this past year, but Daniel Gavins was the winner last time we did see that course. Believe at the time, full-time Challenge Tour player, right? Getting kind of some
Yep.
spot starts when the stretch of golf, wasn't really that full of top-class DP World Tour players. And we're seeing that same exact kind of rollout of a field this week. You mentioned the numbers off the top. You kind of mentioned, the kind of thing we're looking at. We only have 8 winners of DP World Tour events over the last 2 seasons in the field this week. Let's just talk about it before we go individual players wise. Course kind of breakdown or thoughts kind of on way you are approaching this week.
So it's one of those ones where like I've actually stripped it back an awful lot, and this is going to sound like a little bit lazy, but like I've almost just gone a little bit more basic, just who's playing the best golf, who's hitting the irons the west, and just trying to just believe in that, because I did an awful lot of course correlations before, and a lot of people that listen to this know that you've always passed that over to me to kind of mention, and we kind of get caught up in it a little bit, and I've tried not to. So in terms of it, just looking at it as a Parkland test, one that's a little bit different to kind of what we've seen over the past few weeks. Nice break, really, from what we've had, I think, and I like links golf, I like links style golf, but I think here you're going to get kind of a bit more point and shoot. The best iron and driver players are going to be rewarded, and I think there should be some decent scores.
And we are going to a course that has seen not just Gavin's win, John Catlin win, but it has been played frequently on the Challenge Tour too.
Yeah.
So we're going to mention some course history from a few golfers, I'm sure, this week who have played it a good amount of times, either on the Challenge Tour or on the DP World Tour. As we get to the top of the odds leaderboard, want to make sure we kind of look for our support from you guys. We appreciate always the weekly listens. If you are an audio listener, you can find us Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, any of your audio platforms. Rate, review, subscribe. YouTube, Mayo Media Network goes a long way. Again, we're kind of hitting the stretch run of the DP World Tour as we lead into some of our bigger events coming September, October-wise. Of course, football kicking off. Pat is in full swing with Jeff getting everything up and running on the Mayo Media Network. So just an exciting time to keep kind of the support from you guys, and we appreciate it as always. With that being said, Tom, I'm just going to let you lead off with your first selection here. We've seen Callum Shinkwin win at 21. We've seen Richie Ramsey win at 25-1. Is there anything more poetic to repeat after those weeks than Connor Seam winning in the low 20s this week?
I think, do you know what? It's just one of those where, like, I think I have to do it. Like, I'm just thinking back to kind of like recent winners, and you look at Hao Tong Lee. He was off the back of an 18th place finish the start before. Adrian Moronk had been going close, all the way along. Then you had the kind of Xander Schauffele's, Cameron Smith winners. Richie Ramsey had finished. Well, he nearly won the British Masters earlier in the season. Sean Crocker had been showing life in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Callum Shinkwin had been one of the best ball strikers in recent weeks. So it's very much gone to form, and it hasn't been one of those ones where we've always kind of tried to catch people on good golf courses, try to make links, etc. And I think sometimes it's just right in front of you. And Connor Seam kind of makes that profile for me this week. So you look at the fact that he's played here 3 times. Once on the Challenge Tour, he finished inside the top 10. He was basically inside the top 10 all week. I think it was 13th after Saturday. And then he finished 32nd last year, which isn't, great, but it was good enough. And you just look at, the way that he's hitting the ball, it's really, really good. What more do we want to see? Like, he's been 10th, 12th, and 3rd in T's grade last 3, 6th, 9th, and 24th in strokes gained approach. So just hitting the ball really, really well. Are there concerns that it's going to be a bit of a hangover from last week? I don't think so, because I think that he gave it a really good go on the Sunday. Like, one thing I can definitely say over the last 3 weeks is my guys have given it a go on the Sunday, and the Seam really did. He closed that really well. If Shinkwin made any mistakes down the stretch, he'd have had a chance to take control. So really, really good. Just hitting the ball well. Looks like a decent golf course for him. Has been in the past. So let's go with Connor Seam again.
Yeah, completely understand going there. I have a really backloaded card where I thought could take a stab up here definitely, and he would be the one for me overall that I think makes it just fits the bill of kind of what we've seen. And somebody we've given a hard time not getting over the line in the past. He's been in those situations. But I do feel the Sunday yesterday felt different. And realistically, there was, I mean, for him, what, he had a triple bogey, was it on Friday, right? Like,
he did, yeah.
Early on, like Paul Waring, like if you look back on the selections, there really was just like 9-hole stretches for some of the guys, like Waring, Schmid, Pepperell, all like were on that front page of the leaderboard when seemingly I'd written them off at some point in the tournament. And if Shinkwin would have fallen back, I absolutely think we had chances to pounce on there. So, yes, I figured we had, before we even went player by player, I want to talk about Connor Seam off the top. I do want to make sure we talk about the event too, now that I think about it, because this is 2 events simultaneously happening on one course. So we have the LPGA LET also this week at Galgorm. So you're going to see 2 separate ties or cuts. I mean, top 60 is going to get cut down after Friday's round, and then top 35 is going to get cut down after Saturday's round. So you'll have 70 golfers competing on Sunday, but it is not a like co-sanctioned type event with, like we saw when Lynn Grant had won at the Scandinavian Mix. But there are simultaneously 2 events happening on the same golf course. I just wanted to make sure we talked about that, because last year they did the same thing when Gavin won. Gavin's won, I think. I can never pronounce her name, but Pajari Ananana Rukarn. I never know how to pronounce it. It's terrible.
That's not right, but I'm not even going to try and correct you, because
I don't think it's that wrong, honestly. But but she, I believe, won on the LPGA side last year when they had this. So. But we go, I guess, do you have any other interest up here of golfers? What, Jordan Smith, clear favorite. Catlin's up here a little bit as well.
If Jordan Smith can't win this event, then he might as well hand his tour card back in. Has basically been my line in direct messages today. And I honestly believe that. Like, if he doesn't win this week, then I don't know. And maybe that should mean I should be betting him, but I just can't bet Jordan Smith at, basically single digits. So John Catlin was the other one for me that I kind of have thought about betting and still considering doing it. I mean, it's just, he's not in as good a form as Seam. Like, and I know he's got the course form in terms of the 1st and 7th for the golf course, but he's just been pretty naff on and off and really hard to get right. He was 4th at the Irish Open, which is really good. And his numbers, I think, pretty good considering the rest of the field, but definitely Seam much stronger than John Catlin.
He seems like one of those guys to me where, I guess we say that about Shinkwin last week, like where when the number's longer, it's more intriguing because they could turn up in any event and really win. And I kind of have that belief of Catlin based off of his success and doing it multiple times. But yeah, a little short there. I mean, you get Ewan Ferguson coming off, a decent stretch of golf, Veerman, Richard Manziel at 22-1. That one's a tough one to really swallow. Dan Torp definitely catches my eye a little bit. 28 was the longest. Finally fell off a little bit. Right?
I think people will jump off him a bit too quickly. Like, I think he's someone, there was some 33s about him earlier in the day here, and I thought that was big enough. Like, when you think about how he's been basically that number for the last 2 weeks, I thought that was actually okay. But yeah, I think, you've got Santiago Tario, you've got David Law. I think there's plenty of guys. Jack Senior's got good course form. You've got guys here that are, in the mix. I just couldn't get there with taking Seam at the top. I didn't feel the need to go lower again. And even the guy that I've got up next on my card, I thought was a little bit short in the betting, but I was just really keen to bet him.
Yeah, I guess we're almost, kind of in that range. I guess the telltale sign to me of the event being the strength of field that it is, man, is I think this is the shortest number we've seen Guido at maybe all season. He's 33s in most spots.
If you took that, I would, I've talked about interventions in the past, and I would have spoken to our producer and got you probably sectioned, because that's poor, isn't it?
That's bad. That's really bad.
Like, I don't even know necessarily what they're based now. Is it just the fact that, like you say, like there's just no winners in the field, that the fact that he's won in the past qualifies him to be short than 50-1?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, but you keep scrolling. It's really, I guess, you probably would, end up ranking him higher than some of the guys below, that you see here. But man,
Even on the challenge tour, he finished 67th miscut here.
yeah, it's tough. And I guess the best thing about it is when he's like 150 to 1, and I debate not betting it or like just let it go, that one would hurt. If he wins at 33s, I'm just rooting it on. Like it doesn't matter. Like I can live with that. So Guido, you're welcome to win, even with us not being on. I'm okay with that happening. See some interest in Santiago Tarioban here. Definitely can kind of get around that. David Law also comes in here, kind of right around the 30s. But then we jump into what I would say. I mean, we'll go into your next selection here. Probably the best form, or I guess a dominating win recently. But who are you picking off from the top of the challenge tour?
Yeah, so Todd Clements is coming off a win at the Irish Challenge, and it was a really dominant victory to your point. And when you actually look, he's top 6 in the field in terms of form, which we don't normally see from even the best form challenge guys. Like we've spoken about Jens Dansort, we've spoken about players like that in the past that have just had really good challenge tour form. That really, when you average it out, he isn't actually the best. But he's right out there, Todd Clements. And I just think the fact that, he's a win, a second, and a 7th in his last 5 Challenge Tour starts, and he was 26th at the Kazoo Classic, which is what's bumping up his kind of current form. He's 17th for the 54-hole stage there. Maybe I'd have liked to have seen him win on a Challenge Tour and then finish 26th at the Kazoo, rather than 26th and take that into a win. Just if I was getting in my own head a little bit about it. But just the course form, he's got a 3rd place finish here in the past as well. He was actually the 54-hole leader of this event in 2019 as well, when it was a Challenge Tour event. So I think everything kind of aligns to him having a good week. I mean, we talked about kind of 60, 70 to 1 hoping to be the number, but when these numbers came out, he wasn't getting anything like that.
Yeah, it's just a tough pill to swallow, because you come in excited Monday morning for that specific type of guy, and when they are priced appropriately, it's a little like, can you still go there? And I think so too. I think he definitely stands out of that mix. You do like the course history there. Truthfully, I mean, my card is entirely full of guys that are not full-time challenge or full-time DP World Tour players, realistically. And that's kind of at the field from here on out, that's realistically either super out of form DP World Tour guys, or Challenge Tour, or spots into the field, and everything. I'm happy though. Like this is the John Deere, or the 3M of what the DP World Tour has, and this would be saying, even though they're not actually taking like the top. Is this the top rankings of active Challenge Tour guys, or is there a little carryover from last year?
I'm not sure quite how they're doing it. I would say it's probably current, given your next selection and Todd Clements there. But I think just to kind of follow on to that point, what I do like about it is that this is a really good barometer to see where these guys are. Like when you chuck in strong Challenge Tour players into a really strong DP World Tour event, let's say they managed to get themselves into the field at Wentworth or Valderrama or something like that, it'd be no surprise that they struggled. Then you can't really get a gauge of where they are. But if they steamroll that form into this event and carry it on, then you think you can probably get a good idea of where they're playing.
Yeah, it is. It's not current, like, which is super odd to me of it. So like category 24 Challenge Tour members ranked in order of their CT category and rank. Ryan Evans tops that list. Ryan Evans is 131st on the current Challenge Tour rankings. So I don't know like why like Hundable's not in this event. But then you get Clements, who is 4th, in the rankings right now on it. So it's definitely somewhat a step in the right direction, but they didn't hit the nail on the head. Because basically the analogy would be having the top 50 or top 25 Korn Ferry Tour guys playing in John Deere, and that should be an active type of thing. But I'm thankful we do get a stretch of at least some of these golfers, because starting my card, I almost have kind of buckets of guys in which I'm kind of betting this week. And for me, that first one is Tom McKibben. I would say pound for pound, right there with Clements and some of these other guys for best form on the DP World Tour. McKibben, I believe he's only 19 years old, cracked the top 75 in the World Amateur Golf rankings at his peak. Definitely somebody who's been on our radar. Had to have been bet in the past on the show when he got
We
spec
picked
starts.
him at 400 to 1 or something
Yeah.
because I think it was in Ireland. It might even have been this event last year, Skylar. Like we mentioned him because I sort of mentioned the fact that he plays out of Rory McIlroy's old golf club.
Yep.
And now he's actually made. I mean, before when we picked him, it was based on the fact that he had a lot of talent. And he hadn't actually even shown this kind of form. I don't think he'd even made professional starts really at that point.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a step in the right direction now.
Yeah, I think he was coming up the Walker Cup or one of those type of amateur events where but yeah, he's coming in for last 4 events, 5th, 12th, 14th, 2nd, closed with a 66, I believe it was, in his final event. He had to finish 2nd. And to your point, you brought it up on Clements. I actually did kind of like this where those guys stayed here and didn't go chase the last week on the Challenge Tour. They've solidified basically where they stand, and they're going to take this opportunity versus because we have the last week's Challenge Tour winner in the field, but I just kind of like that week off in between. McKibben has done that, showed the excellence from, like you mentioned, and then the other guy that I'm hopping on that I would say pound for pound, one of, if you look at kind of his talent from some of the amateur days where he really ripped it up in South Africa, did win on the Sunshine Tour earlier this year, and then has now shown, I think it's 4 top 20s in his previous 6 starts, a 5th place out last week, or 2 weeks ago at the Irish Challenge as well, is Dion Germishuis. Oh, I don't have any German in it. How do you say that?
I thought it was Germishoy, but I have no idea.
Oh, okay, the Germ makes sense.
The Germ.
Germishuis. Okay, but yeah, he's got a decent pedigree building into this year. He has been a little bit longer on the circuit compared to like McKibben. And this really has been the first year that he has shown that breakthrough. Like he had some decent, like 17, 18, if you saw him coming out when he was younger, he would kind of fall in line with some of the South African prodigies that we have seen from the amateur tour rankings. It's just taken him a few years to cut his teeth, and now showing success, consistency, consistently on the Challenge Tour, especially the last few weeks after winning on the Sunshine Tour. So he's 66s. Those to me are kind of the 1-2 of the Challenge Tour guys that get a little bit more of a discount on that number compared to Clements.
Yeah, I thought Tom McKibben was going to be close for me. John Murphy was another one that I thought would be interesting. Yep. They've all got those kind of Irish links and stuff like that. So there's that. And then, but Germishoy, I think that's how you say his name. It was someone that I thought would come up in your radar because one of the things that he's done is, like you say, to your point, he's really taken that step up. Like he's won in Africa earlier this season. When you go up, and what I love to see in people's OWGR rankings is like the top 10 of his best finishes are littered with 2022, 2021, 2020. Like everything is just a real big progression. Win 3rd, 5th, 3rd, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th. Like they're all at the Challenge Tour level, all at the South African Sunshine Tour level. Like, does that mean that we should be backing him in big DP World Tour events? No, but this isn't one. This is effectively an extended event of what he's been playing in recent weeks. And when you look at the Sunshine Tour event that he won, you beat Louis Diego, beat Jack Blau. These are 2 guys that we've seen recently sort of contend in DP World Tour events. So to me, I think he's got the pedigree to do well. Yeah,
I really was a big fan of it. So yeah, getting that kind of number to me, happy to go there. And again, this is really like it just gets dicey. I have 2 other selections under 100 to 1, and really, you mentioned Tour Tips kind of aggregating some of the form and just kind of giving it a ranking. It's 2 guys that have some interesting history at the course combined with flashes of recent form. And that's really the combination. Get here with first off, Matthew Baldwin. So Matthew Baldwin comes in off the likes of the 15th place last week at the Kazoo Open. Just a steady week, improved his finishing position each and every round. And he kind of was on the radar not that long ago after finishing 10th on the Challenge Tour, where he was 2nd. I guess he was 4th coming into the final round, and then ended up finishing 20th at the Kazoo Classic. Just a decent stretch of form that we see out of him. His best finish would have came in 2019 at this course. Jack Senior had beat him in a playoff that year. So I just think Baldwin, somebody that really is just never on my radar. But when you think about a price history kind of combination in this type of field, it really I think is a sneaky combo for him.
Yeah, I always kind of like Baldwin. I prefer him in those links events that we've just had where I thought he could have flashed. And I think people have been chasing him over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Not chasing him is the wrong word, but taking a chance in the past couple of weeks, hoping that he could kind of come back to form. And he's a guy that really is on the periphery, right? Like he is the definition of a limbo player on these two tours. Whereas your next guy is probably more a solidified Challenge Tour player who hasn't maybe made the step up yet, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and that's Ben Stowe. Ben Stowe, when you kind of aggregate the entire history of what has been here, he's got a 14th, 31st, and 11th by a kind of strokes gain rating that does average him out to be in the top 3, if not the first one, kind of in that history. And then you look at, and this is just kind of almost, what I did with Waring last week, where you kind of see a little bit of flashes here, a little bit of flashes there. He did that kind of similar. You see, so last week for Ben Stowe, 13th place finish at the Challenge Tour. Opens with a 67, which I believe was 65 was the round of the day, so he's 5th. And then he closes with a 66, okay? So that's second best round of the day that week. So then the week before, he had played in the DP World Tour event. Opens with a 64, second after round 1, 13th after round 2. Had a really bad round 4, round 3, bounces back with a 68 on Sunday, finishes 30th. If you looked at the Kazoo Classic the week before that, 10th after the opening round. So a 3-week stretch, combining that with kind of the history of what he has done here and the number. I think he opened as long as 150s this morning on DraftKings, and it was slashed immediately. So this is what I've noticed with DraftKings. We talked about this a couple times. So they open, whenever they get hammered on somebody on open, they over adjust. So before going on the show, he was 30-1 there. He's going to bounce back and settle into the 60, 70 range, I'm sure. 80s was the longest I saw for Ben Stowe. But that just mini flashes here and there for me sets up quite well for him to take. He's known to take it deep. I think he had, when he won the Q School, was that the event where we talked about him recently, where they played at that Q School, where he went bananas at that event. He has an ability to go low in him. So, I'm a fan of Ben Stowe.
Yeah, and I think to that point, he shot a 65 final round to win when he won on the Challenge Tour in Prague. He's finished top 10 in the British Masters. He is aware of this level, top 14 in the Irish Open. When you look at 2020, he had 2 really decent finishes. And it's weird, in the Irish Open, he shot 67, 66 over the weekend and actually struggled in rounds 1 and 2, which is something you wouldn't necessarily, put together with someone that was new to the tour. So it's a tough one. I feel like he's been around long enough that we kind of know what level he is. I think that his finishes recently are probably peak finishes on the DP World Tour, potentially. The kind of 30th to 41st where he plays well for a couple of rounds, which to me all points to a kind of first round leader bet. I think if you're betting Ben Stowe, I would probably bet him to lead after round 1 as well, just because to your point, he can go low. And, he has been playing well. If you actually look at his results just from a timeline point of view, he's 41st, 30th, 13th. He's trending better every week. So, and 2 of those first 2 were both on the DP World Tour. So, yes, I think the real struggle for me was I saw him at 50, 60-1, and he's ranked outside the top 1,300 players in the world. And it's that's when you start to think, are we... it's not like Tom McKibben, that is working his way up, or Todd Clements has recently won. This is a guy that's been established and hasn't quite kicked on. So it depends what you think of that course form. If you really I think he's a great DraftKings player. I think he's a great top 20, great DraftKings player. I just worry about the winning upside.
Yeah, man. It's
but it's one of those weeks where I think he can win. Yeah. I think. To all of that sounds like I'm completely shitting on the pick. I'm not. He has won on the Challenge Tour. And if I stick to my guns, this is effectively a glorified Challenge Tour event, then he should be able to win. It just feels like he has a hard enough time at that level winning to kind of put me off it.
Yeah. We probably could say that almost about everybody, in
Yeah.
some sense when we're this deep here. I believe, and I'm going to let you go into pronunciations for your
Yeah, I mean,
next pick.
I was hoping not.
Yeah. Well, you could probably sound that out pretty easily. Let's hit it because he's going to be next on the odds boards.
Yeah, let's go with Gudmundur Christiansen.
Nice.
I think Christiansen's fine. I'm not sure about Gudmundur. Like that sounds a little bit like something out of Lord of the Rings. But Christiansen he's from Iceland. He's going to be the first Icelandic winner on the DP World Tour, which would be it'd be like Adrian Moronk being the first Pole to win on the DP World Tour. But this is a guy, he's won 3 times on Nordic Golf League in 2019. He finished third in his last start at the Finnish Challenge, which is actually his best ever finish, according to WGR. So that he's got that going for him. He did finish 6 shots adrift of Velton Mayo, who, by the way, I'm very happy to say I've never heard of. Like, I've got no problem saying that I hadn't heard of him.
Wait, so I woke up to messages this morning. No surprise after Ju Young Kim won yesterday. Jude was sending me DMs about the Meyer guy on the Challenge Tour that won. I was like, of course, Jude's just dialed in all the time.
Yeah, like I love that. Like I love that about Jude. Like if he knows someone, that's great. I do not have the time to know who Veltin Meyer is until I need to, which is probably too late, right? Like that's why he's probably ahead of the game. But back to Christensen, like he's been 36th and 3rd his last 2 starts, the 36th coming at the Irish Challenge. And he's played this golf course before and played well. Like he finished 3rd on his golf course. And I just think that, 5th it was on his golf course, but he was the 36 hole leader. No, he wasn't. He was 2nd at the last 36 holes. But he's been in contention at his golf course is the short of it. So Gudmundur Christensen, he's been there, been around the golf course, played well and is in decent form. So I thought the 150 to 1 that he was decent enough. It's just one of those weeks where I just have no faith in anyone. So if you're going to kind of, I just said about Ben Stowe, like you said, like if I have those doubts about Ben Stowe, it's because I have them about everyone. Like the 10 to 1 favourite doesn't win ever, which is the concern.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you have a pulse and you kind of make a reasoning down here, I think, you could probably find yourself with a betting card like what I have. And really, just talk yourself into it's one of the places, with these guys, you can get, 25, 30 to 1 on your guy there with a top 6 each way, like that. That is the enticing part. When you look at 6, you have 8 winners of an event in this field, let alone, guys that are looking for places here. So to me, if I'm walking away with one bet this week, when I was digging into the research, I think this is the standalone best bet on the board. And I'm surprised I haven't heard anybody else in early kind of conversations talking about Barclay Brown. So Barclay Brown, you're going to know him, or at least if you watch the show, you watch the Open Championship. He was the amateur who was in the mix through 36 holes. After opening round, he was in 4th place, right? I believe so. I think he opened with, or 5th place, with a 68, and then he shot a 70 in round 2. So he was 12th looking into the weekend. Now, again, he didn't end up having a really good weekend, didn't have didn't end up being the low amateur. Filippo Celli did, who's back in the field this week. But what intrigued me, so I guess Barclay Brown goes to Stanford. He's probably like a top 100 NCAA golfer. I think he was like 98th on Sagarin's rankings for the year. But to get into the Open Championship, he had to Open qualify, advances winner of his Open qualifier, Barclay Brown. So he does that, parlays that into the Open Championship where he makes the cut. And that's a heck of a performance, in your first major like that. Great for him. So he shows up last week to his first DP World Tour event. Opens with a 79, almost dead last, as bad as it gets. And then this is when the magic happened. He produces back-to-back top 5 tee to green rounds on Friday and Saturday. shooting the second best round of the day with a 67 on Friday, and then he lost 2 strokes on the greens while he was dominating tee to green on Saturday, where he shot a 71. Then he goes back and he shoots a 77 on Sunday. So if I'm looking for somebody who showed life against the best in the world, 36 holes, and then you're really making your first kind of event, you're feeling things out last week, and to show the upside to me like he did there again, 200 to 1 for somebody who is that kind of showing it, and maybe he's not like top of the wagger, he's not like the best of the best when it comes to amateur rankings, but man, I think there's a lot to love about those Barclay Brown like flashes. And for me, like that is more than enough to take a shot on the 36th best amateur in the ranking, because he was second, at the Pac-12 championships there. He won an event in Wyoming earlier this year. Like it was a decent year for him. He was on the Walker Cup. Like he has, this was 21 when he had those finishes. Wasn't his best of a year in 22, but it can play, and I think there's a lot in that upside there.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where again it feels a little bit. Is it recency bias? Like, is it going to be what's going to happen with Filippo Uccelli, that there was the missed cut? But to your point, like fourth and fifth, like 2 top 5 rounds tee to green is huge, right? And you can just see very easily where he's lost those strokes, and that can be very rectified very quickly. So unlike Uccelli, who was coming into the week just off of that kind of decent performance at the Open, we didn't know what he was going to do. Like Brown has showed something last week, and 2 top 5 rounds of tee to green in that field was pretty strong in an event that was difficult enough. Like, so I'm pretty impressed with that. Yeah, I like it. I think it's good. I think it's one of those ones that you could definitely talk me into. I actually think your next pick is a little bit more intriguing, actually, considering the number, but I do like Barclay Brown's reasoning.
Yeah, and it's just digging into, because like this has really been the nice thing. And again, we talk about tour tips often, but Matt SGT to Green tweets the top 20 round by round, but you don't see some of those things in the numbers very often unless you're parsing through day by day to see really, and to know it came from tee to green side of it. For Barclay, I think there's just a lot 200s for a guy that is just so unknown and had a really good 1 year at Stanford. Because at Stanford, like he clearly is talented. So he's one. But then we mix in, and again, I'll loop in the next 2 guys somewhat together as we get kind of in this range. But, it's really coming down to last week's kind of flashes for David Dixon, first one. So David Dixon, I was shocked to see him 400 to 1. Yeah, 400. Just because the field, they cut everybody else. The fact that, somebody who finishes inside the top 5 last week didn't get cut, below this is a little odd to me. It's, telling that, he has not put together realistically much at all in his career. And he is not kind of the youngest of the bunch. When he's 45 years old, had a 5th on the Challenge Tour, only other time inside the top 60 of an event since February. But he had done that at the Kazoo Open in the past too, where he finished top 5 or top 10 and then earned a spot the next week, never took anything of it. But what I love is if you look at those rounds that he produced over the weekend, he kind of was somebody who fell off the leaderboard a little bit to me. And then he comes out here and he shoots -2 on Saturday, -4 on Sunday, really good tee to green, best tee to green on Sunday, 4th with the irons, 9th tee to green on Saturday. Realistically, he had, I think, the second best weekend or inside the top 5 weekends, and he only gained a stroke on the greens when he did that. So, I kind of look at par breakers too. How many birdies did you have? He was right up there with some of the best guys in the week. So I think 400 to 1, like you said, a coffee or 2 on that, Tom, and it get a little sweaty.
Like as well, when you look at the fact, so you talked about that 5th place finish on the Challenge Tour. So he's been 5th and 3rd bookend results either side of 5 missed cuts, right? But you look at the Hero Open, he missed the cut basically on the number, the start before. The Kazoo Classic missed it by a decent amount. Then European Bank Open Challenge Tour just misses the cut. Like he's probably been close, and to your point, like the ball striking leading that is massive, right? Like the fact that it's not just we see some of these guys flash and they gain like 10 strokes on the green, and you just think, okay, well, it's not going to happen again. And then you go back to last year, he was inside the top 25 after day one. Like he shot a 68 and was 24th after day one, shot a 73 in round two and missed the cut, but he was 69th. So, he's only just missed the cut. And, I think just the confidence of playing well last week, that frees you up, gets you another start. His problem is going to have been that he just doesn't get starts. He never gets into a rhythm, has been around, plenty long enough to, like we say, with Ben Stowe and things like that. We know what they are. Are they going to win? Probably not. But for the number that he is, like, this is the point I think with someone like David Dixon. Like, he's 622nd in the world, and he is 400 to 1. Whereas, like, some of the other guys are, way past that and, are well out of the top 1,000. So it's tough. I mean, you have to go back to like 2008 for the last time he won any event of any real stature, right? But it's tough. I mean, I don't know. Like, you look at some of his best finishes, like third at the World's Open, and third last week at his Open, like both, I think, guess on the same golf course. But Portugal Masters, he played well at. Like, he's got a top 30 in the Open Championship. Like, this is a guy that is good enough to play well. It just seems to have not happened for him consistently. I mean, it's just, I don't think he's going to be the guy that kind of breaks through and suddenly has a really good career in his 40s, like a Richard Bland, who, by the way, is in this field, which I thought was a little bit odd. But yeah, I mean, that was a good segue to kind of a point I wanted to make earlier. But he seems to be, I just thought the number was too big. I didn't understand how, like, I didn't think his was adjusted to his recent form, which was on the DP World Tour. I didn't think Christensen's Challenge Tour and finish at the course had been adjusted for. I hadn't really looked at Barkley Brown, I've got to be completely honest. So now when you show me those T green numbers, like, I don't think he's been adjusted for. Like, all of a sudden, I think there's just been a couple of players that have been missed. And in a field like this, that's kind of what you've got to look for.
Yeah, 100% agree. And another one that, and again, you don't really catch these type of things unless you're dialed in or checking round by round or kind of really looking into the numbers. And Bobby Bay, or I guess he's classified, or his name, Zhang
Bei.
Yeah. So BAI, spelling the last name. So if you remember, I believe there was a week. We talked about him extensively on the show. After he Monday qualified on the Corn Ferry Tour, then was like first round leader that next week, and he ended up withdrawing from the event. So 24 years old, has spent the last 3 years basically on the Corn Ferry Tour. Last year had 2 top 20 finishes, I believe it was. I guess 2 top 15 finishes of the Corn Ferry Tour. Made the cut at the Barbasol. And then basically just has fallen off the face of the world from a sense of consistent finishes. Had no, I guess he lost his Corn Ferry Tour status, is basically what it ended up being. And he could go play on the Challenge Tour. He made a cut at the Joburg Open. And he really, outside of that, has not finished inside the top 20 in any events this calendar year. Finishes 35th last week. I believe he was 11th in approach. And then so you go digging into his numbers. And I sorted by par breakers. So par breakers here, Shinkwin. Shinkwin had so many birdies last week. It was
ridiculous. He literally barely made a par.
Yep. So David Dixon was second, okay? Lucas Bjerregaard was third. I really wanted him to be in the field. He was a withdrawal this morning when they adjusted. But then Bobby Bay in fourth. Like, how does somebody like that end up finishing 35th, but then fourth for, a birdies on the week? Like, it just did not make any sense for me when you look at that. And then you see his rounds that he had. He did not break 70 once, 75, 70, 72, 70. Opens on the first round. He had 5 birdies and an eagle, and he shot 75. He had a double. He had the Tom Kim quadruple, and then he mixed in 5 other bogeys on that round. On Saturday, 2 doubles, and he still shoots 72. And if you look at his numbers, again, led by the irons, 11th place in the irons, It's kind of telling. I'd imagine he lost it like a ball or two off the tee, or really put himself in some bad spots, and that's where it came from. I believe he's a little bit longer than average. I mean, he's young, he's talented. He won twice in China in 2019, had an okay amateur career. Like, he's been somebody who's been fringe talked about when he kind of gets on the Corn Ferry. And like we talked about with Aman Gupta earlier a few weeks ago when he kind of flashed, Corn Ferry Tour finishes compared to this field is like a big deal. Like, to me, that's a huge deal if you ever get somebody popping over. So I just, knowing he had done that, and it's not this year, his golf has fallen off, but 500 to 1 for some of those flashes on which we saw last week for realistically his best finish of the year, and knowing what he has kind of in the tank, I'm definitely taking that shot.
And I think what you made is a really good point there, and something that the two golfers I'm going to talk about now are not playing, they're not picked or anything like that, but just for future reference recently, like in the next couple of events, like talking about just round by round data, right? Like Eddie Pepperell was 39th last week in tee to green, but he was 17th on day one, 4th on day three, and he was 101st in tee to green on day two, but only by losing just less than it was like 0.7 tee to green. Then in the final day, he lost nearly 3 strokes tee to green. Marcus Heller-Kilder was 4th on day one tee to green, 10th on day two, 18th on day three, and then 70th on day four. He lost nearly 8 strokes tee to green, which has to be a couple of water balls, has to be, some really bad breaks. Like, to me, like, looking at those individual rounds, like you have Barkley Brown, like, they can change everything. And, I've always been very guilty of just like, I've been pretty good at the hidden form in terms of round by round, like data in current form. But just recently, it's been like, okay, who's flashed with their irons at some point? Who's flashed tee to green at some point? Because it doesn't have to be 4 rounds for it to really click for a player. Like Stephen Brown gained over 4 strokes tee to green on day one last week and is just missing the cut all the time. Like, he's a player I was pretty high on for a decent period of time. He's got a top 5 finish in this golf course. I don't necessarily believe that Stephen Brown can win, but what I do believe is that if Stephen Brown does make the weekend, that anything can happen with a player of that ability. So I think you've got to look at that and what you've kind of pointed to of those players like Barkley Brown, like Stephen Brown there. And then in the future, like when you see Pepperell and Heller-Kilder are 39th and 40th tee to green and think they've gone off the boil from their previous 2 starts, like, no, they were really good for 2 or 3 days and probably just lost a ball or two.
Yeah, if you want to have the epitome of who that was, tied for 4th last week in par breakers with Bobby Bay was Thorbjorn Olesen. I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. So he went 72, 69, 71, and he shot an 82 on Sunday. He had mixed in a 9, followed up. He had a stretch of golf, I guess his first 4 holes. So let me teed off at the front. I don't remember. It would have been 1, 5, 7. He was 9 over through 4 holes stretch. That's impressive. I can respect that. So that's my kind of golf right there.
Talking of a fellow Dane, did you know that JB Hansen lost nearly 13 strokes tee to green last week?
I mean, like,
I don't even know how you do that as a player of his level.
No, I wish it was easier to go back through the shot by shot data. Like, you can on the PGA Tour, you can go find it anywhere. Once it's cleaned off of Bet365, you can't access that link anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's just something that it's just wild times out here. I mean, that's one of the 8 previous winners. Our guy that we hit together last year, and I mean, he hasn't finished inside the top 70 or 50 of an event, in 4 months. Like, it is ripe for the opportunity for guys at 200 plus 1 to 1 this week to win. Like, we might be, just filling up the board, but I'm going to be getting a little bit deeper. Last week we got Paul Waring, just out of the places. I'm definitely going top 10, top 20 on these deeper guys here, just because I really think, anything can happen. You also have the mixed setting of the event throws a little bit, it's just a different style. Only 35 guys get to Sunday. If you get to Sunday, you're there for top 20, So I'm pretty excited for the event after going through, because I just think these type of ones are the best for those that are digging into the numbers. If maybe find something like that and tell a story.
Yeah, like, I completely agree with that. Like, this is the best event for probably bookmakers who are relying on lazy betters. They're just looking for the guy that's finished 5th, 6th, and 7th reason, like I have with Connor Seam, right? Like it's exactly that. Like he's had 2 good starts, he's hitting the ball well. Let's just back him. Like that's what they want. They want people to go all in on someone like that at the top of the market. Jordan Smith is a great course form and current stuff. Like, let's just get on those, and you're not having to worry about these kind of. And then they price a Ben Stowe down because people are latching onto the course form, but because people haven't got the course form with Barkley Brown, with David Dixon, with Bobby Bay, like those don't get picked up. It does show how much influence course form has. Like Baldwin and Stowe are 75 and 80 to 1, and Germishaw is just only shorter than them and playing a lot better. And the 3 that you've mentioned at the tail end there have all played decent stuff in recent weeks, just like round by round, but maybe just missed because people they don't need to worry about the liability on those golfers.
Yep, 100%. So hopefully this can be a week where we do see that breakthrough for us after living around the top of the leaderboard. So Tom, let's go back through your card one more time.
Yeah, so for me, I've got Connor Seam, who is 21 to 1, I think, over there, 22 to 1 over here. Todd Clements, who's 40 to 1, 30 to 1, whatever it is. It's not a great number, not too excited. And Gudmundur Christiansen at 150 to 1. Really, really like that number. I still don't know what to do with John Catlin. I've got to be honest. I think it's probably worth. If you're a John Catlin fan, then bet him. I think is probably the single line there. I couldn't put you off.
Fair. I'm going with Tom McKibben, 55 to 1. Dion Germenhuis, 66 to 1. Matthew Baldwin, 75 to 1. Ben Stowe, 80 to 1. Barclay Brown, 200 to 1, definitely getting the top 10, top 20 with the each way too. David Dixon, 40 to 1, all the way ladder to 20. And then Bobby Bay, 500 to 1, getting the top 20 there with those guys. Definitely have some long shots for the week. Excited for it. And we turn a page. We have, again, getting closer to Wentworth, getting closer to some of the biggest events that we have in the DP World Tour season. So excited for you guys to keep up the support and listening, and we'll catch you next week.